Hello and welcome to a very soggy Buckmore Park for the first round of the 2026 Club 100 Experience Championship. You're watching my best effort from the initial qualifying session, and you can see that I'm taking some very strange lines because it is so wet and soggy. Going very deep into hairpin 2 here. I want to try and hook up with that strip of tarmac in the center of the track that yields a bit more traction. I'm going to get straightened up nice and early for this little kink here. And then I did struggle with this corner going downhill all day. Never really nailed the turning in these conditions, unfortunately. Another little strip in the middle of the track here where there's a little bit more traction. You're going to see me consistently aiming for that throughout the day. Going deep again in this corner, getting it rotated and then getting on the power as early as possible. A little bit cautious through there, probably could have been a bit braver on the throttle, and then delaying getting on the throttle before the main straight and we cross the line. Now unfortunately that was a pretty dismal effort that put me down in 21st out of 24 runners. Not usually where I like to start these races. I consider myself a bit more of a midfield runner in Club 100, so I've left myself quite a lot of work to do here. Probably should have been a little bit braver, maybe experimented a little bit more trying to get back on the dry line as it begins to emerge on the track. But in any case, here we go, off to a rolling start. We're on the outside here, which is usually a disadvantage at Buckmore, but in these conditions it's not so bad. It's kind of really where you want to be. I'm just going to try and stay out of the usual first lap chaos here, take any opportunities as they arise. Got myself on that middle strip of tarmac there to try and get a bit more traction, but there's too much traffic up ahead. Not really anything I can do to capitalize on that, so I'm just taking the wide line here, trying to get the traction nice and early. Once again, you can see the driver ahead, he's running a little bit wide there. That's going to compromise his exit here, but you're a brave man if you dive down the inside on this corner in the damp. Yeah, plenty of opportunity to have an accident there. So you can see just how slippy it is. The cars ahead are squirming around. Now I'm just going to see if I can follow this guy through the inside. You can see he's just not able to get on the power as early as he's like to, but unfortunately I've transferred much of my momentum to him. Now these guys, they go very wide through that corner, and I do think about having a go, but just a little bit too slippy offline there to make it work. Doesn't matter though, because they take each other out, and I can capitalise, take that position from the pair of them. As the race wears on, we start to have a little bit of a scrap with this driver up ahead, back and forth, and you can see that by lap 3 I've actually found my way up to 15th from 21st. So by this point I'm feeling fairly good about myself. Made some good progress through the pack. I'm going to try and retake this position here. I think I've got the move done here, but just as I get on the power I get a tap from behind, which is enough to spin you around in these conditions. I don't think it was intentional. These do in these conditions, but fortunately that means we've got it all to do once again. That put me back down to 23rd, and so I've got to fight my way back through the pack. You can see though that these back markers are really quite, they're struggling quite a lot in these conditions, so they're fairly easy pickings. Again, you can find this little middle strip through the first hairpin that gives you a little bit more grip, and then the same sort of thing emerges in the second hairpin. You want to try and hook up those inside wheels and get yourself some good traction. Again, the guy ahead goes a little bit wide there, and that compromises him from his exit here. Tries to overcompensate by going deep here. That would be track limits. It doesn't matter anyway because I've got myself ahead. Do eventually cross the line in 19th, which is a reasonably good effort considering where we started and the fact that we got reset down to 23rd at one point after making some good early headway. Our fastest lap from that race means that I've qualified 17th for the second race. As we roll around back to the start line for our second start. Still 17th, not really where I would like to be, but at least we're moving forward through the pack. Now you can see I'm not occupying the space directly in front of me. That's because you're supposed to maintain these tram lines, not break formation, and I believe that another car should have been there. If you look over on the right here, I've just circled that guy who's been absolutely murdered on the first corner of the first lap. So there's a free position for me already. Again, just want to stay out of trouble here. I do have a think about going down the inside here, but I don't think it's really on. Bit of a miscalculation for me really there. That's cost me quite a lot of momentum. Think about going around the outside here, but there is an obstacle. And again here, I felt like I had the traction to maybe make the overtake on the inside, but it was in the briefing beforehand that if you gain an advantage by exceeding track limits like that, this was going to be something that they were going to punish on this particular day. So I thought better of it, decided to stay behind. As it happens, I do feel like I've got the pace to have a go at the guys ahead of me and make some more headway. Again, you're going to see me going quite deep into that corner, trying to V off the corner, get some early traction. Didn't really work there. Guy ahead's done a much better job of it on that occasion. Now you can see some differing approaches to this corner. Some people trying to take the dry line on the inside with varying degrees of success. Others, like me, deciding to go wide. Move on a little bit, and these two up ahead having a little bit of a battle, but I'm managing to stay in touch. And this time I'm just a little bit braver on the brakes. Managed to hook up with that middle strip of tarmac and get myself some extra traction. Unfortunately, I do give the position back a little bit later on in the race. You can see he's not got a particularly good exit there, so I do have half a mind to have a go here, but again, taking the inside on that first corner never really ends well, at least not when I try it, and he's fallen victim to it as well there. He's come back at me though, and I think this time he might just about make it stick. Again, I've got better traction through there. There's not really anywhere to go though on a wet track in these conditions. If you go too wide here, you're going to hit the barriers and have an accident. He's still trying that inside line. You can see I'm getting much better traction on the way out, but he's made it stick this time, hasn't he? So yeah, fair play, he's made that one work. So we're going to cross the line, and eventually we are 12th. Managed to sneak our way into the top half of the field, and that's a good 10 positions up from where we initially qualified. So decent rescue operation, I think, but that puts us 15th overall in the championship. Decent recovery drive, I think, but ultimately still a lot of work to do. Thank you, John Patterson of Club 100, for these lovely photos, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.